Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Location: Konoha, specific location: Hokage Tower's rooftop. There, on the Hokage's tower stood the three legendary Sannin. The three people who were next to becoming Hokage all united at one spot over at the exact same tower on the exact same spot that third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, had once stood being honored and praised for becoming the Hokage. That day, he had dreamed one day one of his students would stand at that exact same spot becoming the village's next Hokage. But not like this. Remember the day Sarutobi sensei became the Hokage of the Leaf Village? Orochimaru reminded. Kukukuku, oh that was a great day indeed. Seeing our mentor becoming the village's next great Hokage was a sure sight to behold, giving us the image of what would happen to us if we became Hokage. Orochimaru chuckled looking at his former teammates with eyes that held humor in them. Hokage. Me. Yeah, I think I would have passed on that one. I mean don't get me wrong, becoming Hokage is an honor, but I would rather give it to Tsunade herself. I mean she is more deserving than I am. Jiraiya joked looking at Tsunade with crossed arms. Oh please. The only reason you allowed me to become Hokage was to throw all of that paperwork on me instead. I know if you got all of that paperwork you would lose all of those precious times you would have peeped at naked women on the hot springs as usual. Tsunade scolded. Look at us. It's been years since the day we graduated and became a team and we still argue like the old days. Not much has changed, hasn't it? Orochimaru chuckled. Sensei, do you need help in this fight? The Otokage asked as he kneeled before Orochimaru. No, my student, I prefer to deal with them myself. Orochimaru replied. I just need help setting the barrier up. All I need you to do is to prevent Kakashi Hatake from undoing it, seeing how his sealing skills are that close to Jiraiya's. Orochimaru ordered. Hi. Poof. The Otokage disappeared in a small cloud of smoke. Here I thought that you were the Otokage and Kabuto was your student. Jiraiya said, changing his looks in his eyes to a serious expression. Me, Otokage. I couldn't even if I wanted to. I would have been a sore thumb if I had become the Otokage, so I decided my student would have become the Otokage instead. And to answer your second question, yes, Kabuto is my current student. I had lots but none as promising as both Kabuto and the Otokage. Orochimaru explained. If Sound is truly a village you made, what's the point in trying to take over Konoha? Seems like a waste of time to me. Tsunade said. That is where you're wrong, Tsunade. It's true with Sound Konoha has no use to me. Orochimaru said. Orochimaru gave a brief pause, before he gave them an evil smirk that almost made their spines shivered, before saying, but you, I and Jiraiya all know that Konoha is much more than just a regular village, it's even greater than an elemental village also. What do you mean? Tsunade asked, not liking where this is going. The Scroll of Seals, the Nine Tails, the Senju family sacred jutsus, the great clans, and now the Namikaze bloodline. All the most powerful and sacred jutsus and bloodlines gathered at one place, something no other village besides Konoha had accomplished. Orochimaru replied as he explained it to Tsunade. My plan is far more beyond just taking over one village, Tsunade. With sacred jutsus and bloodlines like these we could have created a new order of the shinobi world. Orochimaru explained. You mean to tell us you haven't given up on that goal yet? Tsunade said. Of course, I haven't, and neither should the two of you. You remember what happened in those wars, right? The horrors the second and third shinobi wars have brought. There are simply too many villages with their own independence and cultures that bring war. How many people had died in those wars? Like maybe. Orochimaru said. Dan and Nawaki. Orochimaru said, which snapped both Jiraiya and Tsunade awake. Your deceased little brother and your deceased fiancé had died in the war, being known as collateral damage. Orochimaru said. Both my brother and Dan died for what they believed in. Tsunade said, getting a little emotional. Really? Because if there weren't any independent villages then war would have never broken out in the first place. If that had happened, both Dan and Nawaki would still be alive today. Who knows, maybe your little brother would be the Hokage today if it weren't for that war. Orochimaru said. That's enough, Orochimaru, Jiraiya said in an aggressive tone. Why should I? I mean, it is the truth overall that the war took away her brother. Orochimaru sighed. I said that's enough, Jiraiya said again, sounding more aggressive than previously. Both of them would still be alive today if it weren't for war, and you would still have them if it weren't for it either. Orochimaru said. Enough. This time, when Jiraiya growled angrily and attempted to say something to Orochimaru, Tsunade yelled at him with an angry tone. Yes, I lost my brother and Dan. Yes, I miss them. I miss them so bad I never stopped thinking about it. Tsunade said. I spent the last 3 decades of my life drinking and sorrowing myself over their loss. And I never moved a day forward and continued to grieve over the past. I was lost, but guess what? I found someone who should have been worse than me, and he isn't. Tsunade yelled. That someone was forced to raise himself as an independent child, that someone had to live a life without anyone's help, and he never had the chance to witness happiness from a real family. That someone was stronger than me, a full-grown adult was weaker than a mere child, and that child had suffered more than I ever could in my life. That child is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Tsunade said. Tsunade. Jiraiya said in a whisper, not changing the look in his eyes, just looking at Tsunade. What a touching speech. Orochimaru chuckled. A large purple chakra circle formed on the edge of the Hokage's tower rooftop, all the way leading to the Otokage, who had a scroll set down. He clapped his hands, doing a series of hand signs saying, Earth, Water, Fire, Air, Lightning, combining the 5 elements together, bring forth the seal of all seals, and trap those inside like a fire on the water, come for the elemental seal. FWRRRRRRRRPPPPPP. Immediately the circle rose up, towering the sky before closing off as a cylinder's end, towering over a kilometer high. That seal! Jiraiya exclaimed. What is it? Tsunade said, before attempting to try and touch the barrier. Don't touch it! Jiraiya yelled. Tsunade backed away. That was the exact same thing Orochimaru used against Sarutobi Sensei. He used that jutsu to keep Sensei in. Jiraiya warned. Tsunade-sama. Far from the tower, Shizune yelled out her mentor's name, before jumping straight towards the barrier. Don't! Kakashi yelled, jumping straight towards Shizune and catching her. In order to prevent her from reaching the barrier, Kakashi landed on the rooftop with Shizune safely in his arms. But why? Shizune asked. I know that barrier. It was used against the 3rd Hokage. I saw Anbu attempt to aid him by passing the barrier. They were killed and vaporized the second they touched it. We cannot go through it. Kakashi replied. But we need to do something for Tsunade-sama. Shizune argued. The only one who I know who could help her now is Jiraiya-sama. Where is he? Kakashi said. He's with Tsunade-sama, he's sealed inside with her. Shizune explained. Then I guess I have no choice, I'll have to free them myself. Kakashi said, standing up. You can use seals too. Shizune asked. Don't forget, I was a student of the 4th Hokage, who learned most of his sealing techniques from Jiraiya-sama. Also, I did seal Sasuke's curse seal to make sure it wouldn't take hold of him. Kakashi replied. Though I have to admit, I have been a little rusty in terms of seals since I don't use them much, but I am second best when it comes to Jiraiya-sama's seals, so I'll try my best. Kakashi explained. Please do. Shizune begged. Kakashi was about to jump, but for some strange reason he didn't and instead stood straight, expecting somebody. What's wrong? Shizune said in concern. We might have some company. I would keep my guard up if I were you. Kakashi suggested. What? Shizune said confusingly. Kakashi Hatake, and Shizune, the apprentice of Tsunade Senju. It's a pleasure to meet the two of you. Shizune turned her head towards the direction where Kakashi was looking at and saw no one else but the Otokage himself standing on a rooftop higher level than they were on. Oh, Otokage-sama! Shizune exclaimed. You can drop the sama on his name, Shizune. This man is no ally to us, are you Otokage? Kakashi said in an interrogating tone. To be honest with you, I prefer the Sama at the end of my title, with only my sensei being the exception to that name. The Otokage said in disappointment. But considering we are invading Konoha once again, I wouldn't expect anything less. The Otokage said. Why are you doing this? Shizune demanded. I can answer that question, but I would rather kill you instead. The Otokage replied with his arms crossed. Tell me, Hatake, how well do you sleep at night? The Otokage asked. Good. Why? Kakashi replied. Because when I fall asleep, I can't help but worry about the outside. Anytime, and anywhere, an enemy village or a rogue group could attack you or your people when your guard is lowered. The Otokage explained. Sure, a simple answer could be to never lower your guard, but everyone has their limits, even in terms of time. I am constantly filled with fear that one day sound could be attacked by enemy shinobi or worse. The Otokage continued. Even if you were to repel an attack, that doesn't mean there wouldn't be any loss of life. The Otokage finished. Doesn't that fear go in your head, Kakashi Hatake? The Otokage said. That fear goes in many others' heads, but that doesn't mean we attack an ally for that particular reason, do we? Kakashi argued. Is this the true reason you're attacking Konoha? Because of fear? Kakashi asked. In power. The Otokage replied. But now the time for talk has ended, it is now time for battle. I couldn't help but hear what you've said about being second best to Jiraiya's sealing techniques, which means there's a chance you could undo the seal inside, but I would rather you not do that. My mentor, your Toad Sage, and your Hokage are having a reunion there. There's only two ways to break the seal. One way is to remove the seal Orochimaru sensei placed on himself, and the second is to wait it out, which would take 24 hours exactly until that happens. The Otokage explained. I would be careful if I were you. I may not be a candidate for the title, and I never had any desire to seek it, but my strength is that close to that of the Hokages. In other words, I am close to Kage level. Kakashi confessed. Really? Then it will be interesting going against the son of the White Fang. With those words said, the Otokage cracked his knuckles and raised his chakra high so those who were 100 meters away could feel it. Just remember, Hatake, you asked for this. The Otokage said, before he, Kakashi and Shizune prepared for battle. In the arena, slash, twink, clash, swat. The Junins were fighting against these figures one by one. The battle so far had lasted for 10 minutes. Ayato, hurry and get on my shoulder, we need to leave now. Froz said, before Ayato complied, laying his body over his other shoulder, thereby carrying both Naruto and Ayato away, jumping away from the village, from the arena. Naruto-kun, Sakura yelled. Kiba. I need you and Sakura to go for Naruto and retrieve him. Kurenai ordered. Shikamaru, you go with them as well. Bring whatever team you can and leave immediately. We'll stay here and clean things up. Asuma ordered. Yes, Asuma-sensei. Shikamaru said. Itachi. Shikamaru heard yelling and turned his head to the spectators' direction, looking at a tall black-haired man who had just pinned Hinata down on the ground, and the person who yelled this man's name was Sasuke in rage. If you want to save Sasuke, then you'll have to face me. But don't interfere too much here, you'll have to face me. In a location further than this, follow me. With that said, Itachi knocked Hinata out, carrying her over his shoulder and jumping away on the rooftops following Froz. Hinata. Damn it, give her back. Give my teammate back right now. Kiba yelled in anger. Arf. Akamaru barked in agreement. Hinata-sama. Neji yelled. Guys. They turned their attention to Shikamaru. We need to go after both of them. I need Kiba and Akamaru. I will also need everyone, Lee, Tenten, Choji, Shino, everyone. We will save both Hinata and Naruto. Shikamaru told. Sasuke, did you know that guy from somewhere? Choji asked. Yes, he's my brother. Sasuke replied. Really? What? Choji exclaimed. I can tell the details another time, but for now we need to save them both. Sasuke said. Shikamaru. Everyone's attention turned to Ino, who was rushing towards them in fear. We need to warn the Hokage. Sound is planning on an invasion. Ino informed frantically. I'm afraid you're too late, Ino. The invasion has already begun. Shikamaru informed. What? Ino exclaimed. There's no time for that now. Naruto has been kidnapped, and Hinata fell to the same thing too. I have no idea what Sasuke's brother wants with her, but we do know why they want Naruto. Shikamaru was informed. Everyone turned to confusion. What are you talking about, Shikamaru? Neji asked. I'll explain on the way. Right now we need to get to those two before it's too late. Shikamaru replied. Neji, Kiba, Akamaru, you two can pick up on their chakra signatures, right? Shikamaru asked. Yes. They replied. Arf. Akamaru barked. Sakura, are you ready? Shikamaru asked. Yes. Sakura replied with determination. Sasuke. Shikamaru asked. No question about it. Sasuke replied. Then it's settled. We leave now. With that said, the genin from teams 8, 7, Guy, and 10 all left immediately, jumping on the rooftop of the stadium before pursuing their friends and lovers. Location. Outside the stadium. Boom. There, on the wall of the stadium from the outside had blown off, an explosion caused by no one other than Genji himself. Damn, nimble woman, she might be a lot harder to kill than I thought. Genji said. That explosion was huge, maybe I overdid it a little. Genji said to himself, looking at his blade. But his eyes widened when he saw a reflection of Anko herself on his blade behind him, now holding a kunai to his throat. Surrender. Anko said with a cocky smile. Never count your kunais before they are finished being made. Genji said, before Anko's eyes widened in realization. She jumped back, as Genji's back suddenly popped with spikes behind him reaching a meter away. What? Anko exclaimed before landing on her feet. Oh great, now my shirt is all torn apart. Genji groaned with annoyance, before throwing his dark covering shirt away. My mask is gone too, oh well, I don't need it anyway. Genji said, before throwing it away. Anko now for the first time had a clear look at Genji's true body. Genji was tall, muscular and had tanned skin. He had multiple scars all over his body, injuries and battle scars from war and missions. He had dark hair and red eyes with no pupils. So, this is the real you, isn't it? Anko asked. Yes, and what you just witnessed is my special technique. The 1,000 Spears of Death, my body thanks to Orochimaru's experiments have now officially become a weapon to use as defense. Genji replied. So, in other words, if I get close to you one more time then I'll be sliced, or worse I'll be punched with so many holes no one will recognize me at all. Anko said. When I felt all that chakra moving on your back, I had to get away. Anko explained. Clever girl. Genji said. You know, I can't tell you how many victims these spikes have claimed. But I can tell you that you are indeed the only person to ever have gotten away with not only their life but limbs back as well. Genji said. I'm flattered. Anko said. Indeed, you should be, but know this, my spikes not only allow me to be used as a defensive maneuver but an offensive one as well. Genji said. Why don't you show me then, huh? Anko said with a smug look on her face. Perhaps another time, at the moment I don't see the necessity to use such a move against you. You see, it's very painful when I use these spikes, so I would rather not. I also only use them when I need to as a last resort, but testing your chakra level, I don't think I need much to go against the likes of you. Genji said. As far as I remember you weren't a force to be reckoned with either back at the forest. Anko reminded. That was because I was under orders to keep a low profile, so I wasn't allowed to go all out back then, so I had to pull my punches not to get noticed too much. But I can guarantee you that this time is different. You see, with the invasion up I can now go all out and fight as much as my heart content to do so. Genji said to Anko. Anko didn't want to admit it, but somewhere along the line Genji was telling the truth. Location. forest at the outskirts of Konoha. A few minutes later, the team of genins led by Shikamaru Nara and Neji Hyuga were en route to save both Hinata and Naruto from the clutches of Sound and Itachi. But they had no idea of the oncoming obstacle that was en route to them until now. Stop! Kiba yelled, and the genins all landed safely on a branch on a tree looking at the Inuzuka with confused expressions on their faces. What's wrong, Kiba? Tenten asked. I smell Naruto's scent coming from that direction. Kiba replied, pointing his head at the route they were taking before, but it was slightly to the right of that direction. Then let's go and save Naruto-kun. Lee cheered. Hang on a minute, Kiba said, before he took a few sniffs from his nose. But Hinata's scent is going the complete opposite direction. Kiba explained, pointing his head a little to the left. Obviously they must be splitting them up. Maybe a tactic that could make us divide our numbers, so we have less strength to fight the enemy when we encounter them. Shikamaru explained. We're not prepared for anything like them at all. This guy, the one with the glasses, I sensed his power, he's really strong. Only our sensei could have the strength to go against someone like him. Ino said. I know that, Ino, I know. Shikamaru said. And if we split our group up, we'll have less power dealing with either one of them. Shino said. Yeah, and that's not the worst bit. If we prioritize either Hinata or Naruto, Goanna will get hurt or worse killed. Shikamaru said. Shikamaru, you said something about their plot, a plan they have against Konoha, what was it? Neji asked. I can only theorize the plan, but right now isn't the time, I'll explain on the way. Shikamaru replied. I think we should split up. Shikamaru said. What? Ino yelled. Are you crazy? We're gonna need as much strength as possible or else. Ino yelled before she was cut off by Shikamaru. Ino, stop. Shikamaru called out. I know this is a risky move. But remember, our sensei are the Junin elite. I don't think they would have sent us to go on a mission like this by ourselves. I think Asuma sensei trusted us with such a mission so we could buy them time. Shikamaru said, now calming down. Remember, our senseis in the previous invasion took down squads of shinobi by themselves. I saw Asuma sensei do it single-headedly without any effort. I think we're just sent so we could buy as much time as possible. And I don't think I am the only one who has figured out Sound's plan either. Asuma sensei looked like he knew their plan also. Shikamaru said. And we're not alone, we have Sans help as well. Shikamaru said. Are you listening to yourself, Shikamaru? Have you forgotten about what those damn bastards did to us last time? They may have been tricked that Orochimaru was their cage, but that's no excuse for what they did to Konoha. Or what they did to the third Hokage. Kiba said in anger. Arf. Akamaru barked in agreement. I have to agree with Kiba, Shikamaru. How do we know Sand can be trusted? I know they helped us when Naruto tried to leave, but how do we know that wasn't a plot to get our trust? How? Tenten argued. Shikamaru could only smirk, knowing what he was doing. Because I have trust, I know we can trust them. Shikamaru said, before his smirk grew. So, trust me, Shikamaru said. Naruto-kun, Sakura said with her eyes narrowed on the ground in sadness and worry. Sakura, Ino said, looking at her friend with sad eyes. Hinata-chan, damn it, I should have saved her. Sasuke said in anger towards himself. Sasuke, Neji said, looking at Sasuke with sad eyes. Location. Hokage's tower rooftop. Arg. Jiraiya coughed a large amount of blood from his mouth from the injuries he had sustained from Orochimaru. How? Jiraiya grunted, kneeling on the ground holding his gut in pain. This is impossible, Tsunade said, holding her right arm in pain with her jacket now torn off by Orochimaru, looking at her former teammate with eyes of battle. You may now know how to use your arms without chakra, Tsunade panted. But that doesn't mean you should be able to use ninjutsu again without the chakra in your arms. Tsunade said, panting more. Kukukukukuku. Orochimaru chuckled. Even with the loss of ninjutsu in my arms, I was still able to push both you and Jiraiya to your limits. Orochimaru remembered the time when all three first met after years of silence, when he had pushed them to the brink. Back then, Tsunade tainted my liquor with sleeping drugs, so I was not able to go full power against you at the time. Also, Tsunade had. Jiraiya panted in pain. I had been training for the past a few months since then. So, I'm now back to the strength I was before I left the village. Tsunade finished for Jiraiya in between pants as well. Yet the two of you can barely lay a hand on me. How ironic, Orochimaru said, before he did a series of hand signs, before releasing his next attack. Fire style. Fire beam jutsu. With that said, Orochimaru held out a palm towards both the Sanins before releasing what appeared to be a beam of fire heading straight towards them. Unable to move or react in time, the two Sanins closed their eyes and prepared for themselves for the fiery flaming pain that would have come to them. But it didn't. Instead, the two Sanins with their eyes closed heard the sounds of sands moving around them. They opened their eyes to see it was a sand-like dome protecting them from the flames before it finally went out. Once the flames were gone, the sand had dissolved, then moving on its own backwards, towards one person who could have formed that sand barrier in the first place. It was no one other than the one and only person who knew how to control sand. Gaara, the new Kazekage, had arrived in battle. Orochimaru, we finally met. Gaara said, with his arms crossed as his sands floated above his head. Location. Unknown, specific location, in the forest outskirts of Konoha. Outside, far from Konoha's walls, were the genins chasing after Naruto's scent. Those being Sakura, Shikamaru, Kiba, Akamaru, Choji, Lee and Ino, who all were rushing towards Naruto. It smells like this Junin isn't moving very fast. Kiba called out. Arf. Akamaru barked in agreement. Maybe it has something to do with their plan. Ino suggested. If what Shikamaru's theory is about, then maybe they're trying not to get too far from Konoha. Otherwise their plan might not work. Ino said, thinking about what Shikamaru had told them about his theory of their plan. Shikamaru turned his eyes towards Lee and saw the serious look on his eyes. They were more serious than they were his youthful glare. What's wrong, Lee? Shikamaru asked. Nothing. Lee replied. I'm just thinking about what you and Neji said, that's all. I'm just afraid if your theory is true. And I'm also not sure if we should separate like this either. Lee explained. Shikamaru was also second-guessing himself. Which was a very rare occasion that Inara would do. Even for Shikamaru this was an unusual case. Flashback begins. Back where they were previously, Shikamaru was talking to Neji about the plan and theory. I have a theory about Naruto, and why he's connected to Sound's plan to destroy Konoha. Shikamaru said. Then what is it? Lee spoke up. Everyone knows about the incident, Lee, don't they? Shikamaru said, which made Lee give him a small gasp. The fight with Naruto back in the forest. Or at least it was once. It seems like Naruto's story of his mishap with the Kyuubi had reached so far as the shinobi nations. Shikamaru explained. Not only that, but my best guess is Naruto hasn't healed from the experience yet. Shikamaru said. What do you mean? Tenten said in confusion. What I mean, Tenten, is that maybe Naruto hasn't healed yet in his heart from what happened a few months ago. Now that he regained his memories, he may now have regained the pain he had suffered at the time. No matter how Naruto acts or looks, I think Naruto hasn't fully recovered mentally yet. Shikamaru explained. But these past few months Naruto hadn't had another incident yet. Lee protested. Lee, I wasn't in the forest of death during the second phase of the Chunin exams, and I felt the incredible chakra surge that came from Naruto. You know as much as I do. It was the Nine Tails chakra, Lee. Shikamaru said, which made Lee think about what he said earlier. It's true. Everyone's attention has gone to Sakura. During the second phase, me and Naruto-kun were ambushed by Kageyaki. He threatened to kill me if Naruto-kun didn't take the fight seriously enough. For that Naruto-kun was forced to use the Kyuubi's chakra and almost killed Kageyaki as a result of it. It was because I was getting hurt. Naruto-kun was forced to use the demon's chakra and Naruto-kun was controlled by the Nine Tails chakra. Sakura explained with a sad look in her eyes as she looked down on the ground in shame. And don't forget this was before he regained his memories. Shikamaru said. And now that he has them back from that incident, Naruto could be controlled by the Kyuubi's chakra if he was provoked. Shikamaru said. So, what you're suggesting is maybe that Sound wants to provoke Naruto into releasing the Nine Tails? Sasuke asked. Yes. Shikamaru replied. But that's suicide. As soon as they release the Nine Tails they will be in the crossfire. They'll get killed too. Choji exclaimed in shock. In normal circumstances that would be the case, Choji. But I don't think Kyuubi will care about Sound. Shikamaru said. Don't forget, whatever Naruto suffered the Kyuubi suffered as well. Whatever pain Naruto felt was felt by the Kyuubi as well. Whatever injury Naruto sustained, the Kyuubi did as well. Shikamaru explained. My best bet is that Sound must know about the Kyuubi's abuse as well from Konoha's hands. Which leads me to believe they're gonna use that as a means to lead the Kyuubi to destroy the village's revenge. If Sound stays out of the way, I guess they won't have to worry about a single thing. Shikamaru said. I see. Neji said. So Sound as Goanna uses Naruto's emotions which are unstable at the moment as a means to release the Kyuubi to destroy Konoha. Neji said. And the village still hasn't recovered from the last invasion. Shino said. And when the Kyuubi first attacked Konoha they had the same force and strength as we did before the Sand Sound invasion. If Kyuubi attacks a second time when we're this weak, there's no way we can defend the village like last time. On top of that, it was the fourth Hokage that sealed the Kyuubi along with his wife, and they used a seal only they knew at the time. There's no way for us to reseal the Kyuubi again if it goes on another rampage in Konoha again. Tenten said. And don't forget, we are being attacked right now, so we're still losing power, and it isn't even a real fight. Shikamaru said. The Junin also said something about a genjutsu to use on Naruto, something that Ayato guy must have copied using the Namikaze bloodline to copy that jutsu. The Junin also said that only Ayato and Orochimaru can use that jutsu. Shikamaru said. But how does Ayato have the copy anyway? I thought the Namikaze clan only had the bloodline limit. And Naruto is the last one. Tenten said in confusion. We don't know all of the details of Tenten, but we do know what their objective is, and what they might do, so we might as well prepare for it. Shikamaru said. I think I should take Ino, Choji, Kiba, Akamaru and Lee with me. Shikamaru said. We can't just split up and. Tenten argued before Neji cut her off by stopping her with his arm in front of her. Shikamaru's right, Tenten. The only way we're gonna save both of them is if we split up. Neji said. In that case I'll go with you. Sakura said as she took a step towards Shikamaru. You sure? Shikamaru asked. Yes, I'm sure. Sakura replied with determination in her voice. Even if I said no, I don't think you would have taken it. Plus you did stop Naruto when the Kyuubi took control over his body, maybe you can do the exact same thing if we're too late. Shikamaru sighed. Meanwhile the rest of you save Hinata. Shikamaru said. Flashback ends. You know what I don't get? Choji said while jumping from branch to branch. Why do they need Naruto? I mean they have Gaara and he has the one-tailed beast inside of him. I know that the one-tails is weaker than the nine-tails, but shouldn't he have been enough? Sounds overkill using the nine-tails. Choji said out of confusion. Didn't you hear a word I said before, Choji? Sand is not our enemy this time, only Sound. Shikamaru said. How do we know it's not some half-cooked trick Sand is making us believe? I thought they were our friends too before they helped Orochimaru kill the third Hokage. How do we know they're not using us like they did last time? Kiba protested in anger. Arf. Akamaru barked in agreement. Alright. Shikamaru sighed in frustration, before opening his mouth to reveal to the others his reasoning. I've been dating Tamari, Shikamaru said simply, in the simplest way possible. Everyone's eyes opened in shock wide, before yelling, "What?" Quote. Due to their yelling, they completely lost concentration and slipped from the branches from the trees and fell down on the ground. Sakura and Ino on their asses, Lee headfirst, Choi on his stomach, and Kiba and Akamaru on their heads. Both Sakura and Ino were rubbing their behinds in pain while Kiba and Akamaru were rubbing their heads the same ways as well. Choji weakly got up and Lee, he was sunk from his head to the bottom of his neck to the ground, with his arms, legs, and torso as stiff as a stick. Shikamaru landed in front of them. What? When did this happen? How did it happen? When did you get hooked up with the sister of the now current Cage, Shikamaru? Choji frantically said in complete shock and realization. About a month after the Sand Sound invasion and after Tsunade had become the 5th Hokage. I guess Tamari took an interest in me and asked me out as an apology for what she did to play her part in Konoha. Shikamaru explained. She sounded honest and I really don't like people who owe me one because that's such a drag. Shikamaru said. Then how come you never told us about it? Ino exclaimed. I tried to. But you were busy doing whatever it is you do in your free time. Choji was eating chips again, Lee was training, Neji was training with Hinata, Tenten was taking care of her parents' shops as she was busy, Shino was nowhere to be seen as usual, Kiba and Akamaru were sleeping in their house during the daytime again, Sasuke was training, Naruto is Naruto so he wouldn't understand a word I would say and Sakura was looking through taijutsu scrolls. Shikamaru explained. So, there was no one who would listen to what I had to say at the time. Even if I did, I wouldn't really say it because, knowing you Ino because I know you would gossip about this and tell the whole village about it. Shikamaru said to his platinum blonde-haired teammate. Still you could have said something. Kiba said as he got up and walked towards Lee before grabbing his right leg, while Ino walked towards Lee as well grabbing his right leg. Arf. Akamaru barked in agreement. 3, 2, 1, pull. Kiba said, as both him and Ino started pulling Lee's legs trying to free their youthful happy friend's head from the ground. Arf. Akamaru barked in agreement. Shikamaru, is this how you know Sand isn't our enemy? Sakura asked. Yes. Shikamaru replied. After what happened in the Chunin exams earlier this year, Sakura-san couldn't afford to try another stunt like that again. They suffered a backlash as hard as we did. Shikamaru said. Plus, Gaara's the Cage, so he knows what's happening in the Sand Village. Tamari being his sister, also tells me what happens from time to time. Which is how I know the Sand Village is our ally not the enemy. Shikamaru explained, while Kiba and Ino were tugging Lee's legs harder and harder. Ally, you don't mean, Choji said in a brief pause before Shikamaru continued for him. Yes. We are not alone in this fight, Choji. Sand is gonna help us, they're gonna help Konoha from this crisis no matter what. Shikamaru finished for Choji, while Kiba and Ino gave Lee a massive strong tug that popped his head out of the ground. But when they saw him his head wasn't there and they began to scream in horror. Believing they may have pulled too hard and ripped Lee's head off. But Lee's head popped out of his torso revealing he was okay, making Kiba, Akamaru, and Ino faint. If the three of you had enough, could you please stop goofing around and get serious? Shikamaru said with his arms crossed looking at Kiba, Akamaru, and Ino with eyes of disappointment. The next time Lee's head gets stuck in the ground you pull it out. Ino yelled as she pointed her finger towards Shikamaru in anger. I thought we just killed Lee you moron so you should help us next time. Kiba yelled in anger waving his fist at Shikamaru. Arf. Akamaru barked angrily at the Nara in agreement. Whatever, let's just get going before the trail gets cold alright. Shikamaru sighed in frustration. Jerk. Kiba and Ino yelled at the same time in anger. Arf. Akamaru barked in anger in agreement at the Nara. Whatever, let's just get going. With that said, the lazy Nara leapt away with the others following him. Location: unknown. With Neji's squad composed of Sasuke, Tenten, Shino, and Neji on the way to save Hinata. Are you sure you can find Hinata, Neji? Tenten asked. Yes, Neji replied. While the Byakugan isn't a dojutsu for tracking. Both me and Hinata-sama share the same blood while also the same chakra. I can see her trail of chakra leading straight towards her. Neji explained. What bothers me is Itachi. Shino said. As I heard from my father, he was named Anbu captain of the Anbu Black Ops at the age of 13. Even at that age he surpassed even the most skilled Junin. How will we deal with him when we find him? Shino asked. I don't know, Shino. Neji replied. But what does he want with Hinata-sama? Neji said in confusion. He doesn't want Hinata-chan. Sasuke said, getting Neji's attention. He's after me, he's only using her as bait. Sasuke explained. I figured Itachi wants to use her to lure me in. I don't think anything else matters to me besides me. Sasuke explained. Neji looked at Sasuke, who had his emotionless expression on. But deep down Sasuke had seemed to have some connection to Itachi, something Neji knew very well. It was the exact same emotion Sasuke felt against Itachi as Neji had once felt against Hinata, and knew this must have been personal for both of them. Location: streets of Konoha. Everyone please remain calm and walk in order. One shinobi announced. There'll be more than enough room in the hidden bunkers, there'll be no need to push. Another said. The sound shinobi are 100 of meters away, they won't be coming here. Another leaf shinobi said. Boom. Immediately everyone panicked and ran when some mysterious object or person suddenly crashed and landed in the center of the street. What the? The same leaf shinobi from before had exclaimed in shock. Soon the streets were cleared when everyone had finally left, leaving the mysterious person in the crater. When the leaf shinobi surrounded it, the smoke had cleared, revealing Anko in her net t-shirt injured in the crater. Anko-sama, a shinobi exclaimed. Damn, arg, he's a lot more powerful than I first thought. Anko groaned in pain, as she stood up weakly from the ground. Anko-sama, are you okay? The shinobi said as he walked towards her. Anko's eyes grew wide with shock and fear as she then yelled, get away from here now. Boom. It was too late. The shinobi along with the rest that surrounded her were then covered in flames, blowing Anko away. Anko crash-landed onto a nearby building. Her eyes were blurry, but she looked at where she once stood, hoping to find survivors. Unfortunately, she was the only one that survived. A photo that was covered in flames flew past her face, revealing that shinobi offered her help with his wife and baby son slowly burning away to nothingness. How unfortunate. Anko gritted her teeth in anger as she looked up at the building across from her to see Genji, without a scratch, standing there with a smug look on his face. He was nice to you too bad he couldn't help you in time. Genji mocked. You bastard. He has a son who's only a few months old. How could you? Anko growled, as she once again got up weakly, holding her right shoulder in pain. And there were children that weren't born yet that were killed in my village a long time ago. Genji argued. This is the path Konoha had chosen, this was their fault, and this is the price they should all pay. Genji said, as he walked towards Anko. You're a sick bastard. Anko growled. I find it ironic that you could say such a thing to me despite your history, Anko Mitarashi. Genji said. How many lives have you taken? How many of those were shinobi? Shinobi who were mothers or fathers. Shinobi who had families waiting for them. Families who received their loved ones in a body bag because of you, if they were lucky. Tell me, what gives you the authority to even say something like that to me when you know your hands are covered with blood too? Genji said as he stopped 10 meters away from Anko. You might be right. I probably don't deserve to use those words. I know how the shinobi world works. I know the cruelty that comes from it. I know the prices that are paid for peace. Anko said weakly, but her eyes were filled with anger against Genji. And the price for peace are innocent lives. Genji said. Even with peace comes more war. The shinobi world can never get enough of something, so they continue to wage wars so they can acquire it. Konoha, or the peace and power you have, you must have slaughtered a lot of innocent lives just to get where you are today. Genji said. Maybe so. But we return everything we did that was bad in the past to other villages with our protection. In return, we take client missions and aid the non-major villages and help them grow for what we had done in the past. That is the way of Konoha. Anko argued. What you people are doing, you are destroying what we worked so hard to make. It's true we have caused nothing but horror in the past, but we are returning everything now. You people, however, will abuse that power, take over villages and harm innocent lives, more than what we have taken. Don't you see? Anko growled. Do you not see the villages that you protect are causing harm as well to other villages that you're not allied with? That's stupid what you just said. Genji spoke. Think about it. Every time you help your allies, you're causing harm to the other villages around them. Orochimaru is simply doing his best. Genji said. What's best? What is it? Anko said in curiosity. Unfortunately for you, Anko Mitarashi, that'll be something you'll have to take to the grave with you. Genji said, as he held his katana high in the air before it glowed jade green with a dragon on the katana's blade. Jade Dragon's Wrath. Genji said, as he then swung his sword towards Anko, releasing a light green chakra-colored dragon heading straight towards her at full speed. Anko gasped, knowing there was no way out for her, and closed her eyes to prepare herself for the pain that would come to her. But luckily, her hero showed up to save her. A green blur consumed Anko as the chakra dragon had struck the building instead of her. Boom! The dragon crashed head first towards the building, then crashing through other buildings, collapsing the whole structure down to the ground, before disappearing back into the sword. Genji looked unsurprised that Anko was gone and shifted his eyes to where she was at right now. Anko was on the ground, with Iruka in front of her standing with a kunai. Anko was lying on her right side where she saw Iruka panting heavily from the running, his back turned against Anko in preparation to fight. Iruka slowly turned his head towards her, and said, I thought you were a Junin. How could you let somebody like him overpower you? He's no ordinary Junin. If I have to say, he's at Kakashi's level of strength or guys. He's really strong. Anko said weakly as she attempted to get up on her feet again. You should stand back, he's too much for a Chunin, like you to deal with. Anko said, as she got up, but her legs began to shake violently, before she collapsed with a slight gasp. Yeah, well, you don't look too good yourself either. Iruka spoke out. I have no idea what happened between you and your opponent. But that doesn't matter at all. Right now Konoha is under attack and this guy is our opponent as much as he is yours. Iruka said to Anko, who looked at Iruka with her purple pupils less eyes which were weak. The whole village is under attack. While true, you are stronger than me and more experienced, but I think that you might need some support and help in order to defeat this guy. Iruka said, which Anko had agreed with him in her mind. Anko took a breath and stood up again but without falling. She walked slowly next to Iruka while taking out a kunai and taking a fighting stance with it. Then let's work together and take this monster down, Anko said, as they both prepared themselves for the worst. Location: Konoha's buildings, specific location, inside an office. Inside one of the office buildings of Konoha's business district was quiet. The tidy and organized desks laid still without a speck of dust to be seen anywhere on them, while the arranged chairs were still too, with the water coolers perfectly still also. Everything looked okay and good, so what's the fuss about? Some shaking was heard in the office before. Boom. Crash. Spill. From the ceiling of the office came crashing down Kakashi Hatake several stories through the building, while the Otokage had followed him by jumping in. When he landed down to the ground floor of the building, he saw Kakashi laying still, his hair a mess with his Junin vest gone, his heart stabbed with the Otokage's katana. The Otokage walked towards the lifeless body of Kakashi Hatake and grabbed the katana's handle and pulled it out with ease. I must commend you, Kakashi Hatake. You are indeed not only a worthy opponent but a worthy candidate for the title of a Kage. The Otokage said as he looked at his blood-stained katana, while looking behind him at the darkness. And I must commend you too, Otokage. Kakashi said appeared from the darkness behind the Otokage. Kakashi was perfectly fine. No scratches and no injuries, his hair was perfectly fine. There aren't many people in the world that can see through one of my clones. Kakashi said. Poof. The clone that was injured from the Otokage's katana had disappeared in smoke. I know if I were to defeat you, Kakashi Hatake, it would be a lot more difficult to kill you than what I did with that clone of yours. The Otokage said. To be honest, I'm happy I didn't kill the real you because that battle was just too easy. The Otokage said. Which reminds me, what happened to that other girl who I was fighting? The Otokage wondered before he pointed his finger up like he had an idea. Ah, now I'm a member. The Otokage said. Boom. Crashing down from the ceiling was Shizune, who had a fist pulled and was prepared to hit the Otokage with it. Ah! Shizune yelled. Boom. The entirety of the ground floor of the said office building had completely leveled the entire structure, since Shizune may have overdid the punch a bit. There, outside of the now sinking structure, the Otokage appeared 20 meters away from the building. While Kakashi and Shizune followed him as well. I think you may have overdone it a bit, Shizune. Kakashi said, as he looked at Shizune with his good eye. Yeah, I think I did too. Tsunade-sama is gonna kill me for this. Shizune said in fear of her mentor's rage and anger, terrified of what she was gonna do to her own pupil. If she's lucky, that is. Knowing Orochimaru-sensei, most likely Tsunade Senju will lose her life. In this battle, it's inevitable, there's no way of stopping it. The Otokage said to Shizune. How can you be so sure? Kakashi said. If you didn't know, the third Hokage gave his life up and sealed Orochimaru's arms, he cannot use ninjutsu anymore. Kakashi said to the Otokage. Indeed, he cannot use ninjutsu biologically. The Otokage said, which made Kakashi question. What do you mean? Kakashi asked. Sadly, that'll be something you nor the girl will ever know. The Otokage replied, before attacking Kakashi and Shizune again. Location. Hokage Tower rooftop. Gaara. I mean Kage-sama. Tsunade exclaimed. What are you doing here? Tsunade said. Using my sand, I was able to get through the barrier. Since the barrier is made up of elemental properties and sand is made out of tiny stones, I was able to make a hole in the barrier to allow me through. But my sands are limited in numbers, so I was only able to make one small enough for me to fit through, so I couldn't find anyone from the outside to here or from here to outside, so I believed I could provide support for you, Hokage-sama. Gaara explained to the fifth Hokage. Gaara then eyed Orochimaru, who still had his smug smirk on his face, and said, so this is the man that killed father. Kukukuku. Gaara, my child, it's been a while since I last saw you. Orochimaru snickered. To be honest, Orochimaru, this is the first time I'm speaking to you face to face. Gaara said before taking a brief pause. But I suppose that is not true considering you were disguised as my father during the Chunin exams last time. I was wondering why he took interest in me all of a sudden after almost a lifetime of neglect. Gaara said. True, while I did disguise as the Kage, I should have paid more attention to detail and to my acting. Orochimaru said. I've heard you've taken your father's mantle as the next Kage of Sangara. Orochimaru said with a slight chuckle in his voice. I did not want this position from the council, especially after all the harm they caused me in my life, but Sand needed a Kage immediately, so I had no choice but to take the position. If I had a choice, I would have denied that position. Even now I'm nothing to the council but a figurehead. Gaara explained to Orochimaru. And as Kage you should do everything that's for the good of Sand, right? Orochimaru said. Why would you aid Tsunade, the fifth Hokage of Konoha? Orochimaru asked. Because Konoha is Sand's ally, we are allies, so we should take care of each other and watch each other's backs. Gaara replied. Sand sprouted from Gaara's gourd, which then surrounded Orochimaru in a blink of an eye before locking around him, keeping his arms and body secured. Orochimaru's body, with the exception of his head, was surrounded by sand. Orochimaru did not move, knowing it was futile considering the sand's strength, and instead smiled at the current cage. I'm guessing with your help Sand isn't behind this invasion at all, are they? Jiraiya wondered. No, we are not. Gaara said simply. If so, you do realize this doesn't change the fact that Sand a long time ago had to demilitarize as a peace treaty for Konoha, right? Tsunade asked. Indeed. Gaara replied. However, that doesn't matter anymore. I'll admit that Sand was the aggressor for Konoha in the last invasion. For that I apologize, but no amount of apology could make up for the lives that were taken that day. Gaara said. It's okay, as long as you're on our side we're happy. Jiraiya said. Kukukukukukukukukukukuku. Gaara, it seems you forget how terrifyingly strong I am compared to you. When we first met you were afraid in your eyes of what I was capable of. Orochimaru said. The tables have turned to Orochimaru. Indeed, I knew how powerful you were, but when the third Hokage used a jutsu to rid the chakra of your arms, I knew your strength had decreased significantly. Even with the help of your devices, your arms still will hold you down. Gaara said. Wait, what? Tsunade said. Kukukukukukuku. My Gaara, you certainly have seen through me. Orochimaru said, before he suddenly disappeared, turning into a of snakes that slipped through Gaara's sands and onto the ground. Those snakes slithered their way through the Hokage's tower through the cracks and escaped. Poof. Orochimaru appeared behind Gaara holding a kunai against his neck from behind. There, Gaara saw Orochimaru's sleeve, which had some strange device underneath it. Both Jiraiya and Tsunade realized it as well. A device? Tsunade exclaimed in shock, noticing the device underneath Orochimaru's sleeve. Like the ones the Sound Genin used. Jiraiya pointed out. Orochimaru chuckled before slipping his sleeve to reveal the device. The device was like an iron bracelet that squeezed Orochimaru's wrist tight, having thin metal small pipes going into the ring and all the way towards the shoulders of Orochimaru. I'll admit, Sound has the best scientists and mechanics known throughout the shinobi world. This device you see before you was made specifically for me and me only. The scientist called it the Chakra Transfer Bank. Orochimaru explained. Let me explain. Orochimaru began. This device has several pipes fused with chakra to deal with massive amounts of damage that makes it immune to almost any attacks whatsoever, that includes your punches, Tsunade. This device with the pipes is connected to the parts of my body that do have chakra floating through them, forcefully flowing the chakra through my hands. Orochimaru explained. So that's how you're able to produce ninjutsu through your arms, you have a device that helps you. Jiraiya said as he chuckled. And what's funny about it? Jiraiya. Orochimaru said with a smug smile on his face. Oh, I'm just thinking how funny it is that you need some sort of help like that for you to battle with. I mean, as the great Orochimaru, you would think he wouldn't need devices like that to help him fight. How the mighty have fallen. Jiraiya chuckled in amusement. I'll admit, it does indeed irritate me that I need the help of devices like this to help me fight. It's comparable to a person who has legs but can't use them, so they need a wheelchair to move. Orochimaru admitted. However, once Sasuke's body is mine, I know that I will not require these devices ever again. Orochimaru said. Still after Sasuke, huh? Jiraiya said. As I heard, he didn't exactly play well with Tayuya from Sound. Jiraiya said. I know, Tayuya had gone against my orders and nearly killed Sasuke. Orochimaru said, his voice filled with slight irritation from the mention of that scenario. Gaara's Sands took the moment to grab him and move him between Jiraiya and Tsunade with his arms crossed. It looks as though Orochimaru is a little more powerful than I first anticipated him to be. I shall lend you my strength and support in this fight, Hokage-sama. Gaara said, as he kept his eyes centered at Orochimaru. Tsunade looked shocked at Gaara, before standing properly on her legs with a smile on her face, saying, "Please Gaara, call me Tsunade." Alright, it's us three against Orochimaru. With our numbers we should provide some confusion towards him. Agreed. Gaara said. Kukukukukuku, this should be fun. Orochimaru chuckled. And so, the fight between the cages and Orochimaru is about to begin. But will there be a solution to this invasion? Will there be any hope for Konoha? Will they save Naruto before it's too late? Location: Konoha outskirts, specific location, forest. Now, 17 minutes have passed and Frost stopped and dropped Ayato and Naruto on the ground, laying them there. Letting Ayato catch his breath. I was the one carrying you, so I don't think you should want to be like that. Frost said with his arms crossed, his eyes ridden with disappointment. I'm sorry, Frost sensei, but I have chakra exhaustion, so I'm not 100% yet. Ayato explained himself, while panting. And the same goes for the rest of you. Frost called out, as he turned his head away from Ayato and looked deep into the forest. There, 4 figures showed up, those being Saraisu, Yo and Hao, and including Tayuya. Sorry sensei. Saraisu apologized. Yeah, sorry sensei. Yo and Hao apologized at the same time. Sorry sensei. Tayuya apologized. Frost looked at Tayuya and saw her holding her right shoulder, while her right arm was holding her sides which glowed green chakra, showing she was healing herself. Frost looked rather upset at Tayuya and walked towards her. Tayuya, I wasn't expecting you to come here. Not after that stunt you pulled into the stadium during Ayato's fight. Frost said as he approached Tayuya. Sorry, sensei, but that damn brat tried to kill me. It was self-defa. Slap. Tayuya wasn't able to finish her sentence because Frost slapped her on the face so hard she fell to the ground on her sad face. Tayuya used one arm to lift herself up, while shaking with slight sadness. You stupid, pathetic, idiotic, self-centered woman. Are you trying to sabotage us on purpose? Exclamation mark quote. Frost growled at the fallen Kunoichi. Frost grabbed Tayuya's hair and pulled her up, making her groan in pain as she felt her own hair sting her head in pain as though her brain was being pulled up. You were meant to convince Sasuke to join us and not kill him. Frost said, as he then slammed Tayuya's head on the ground by throwing her. Frost gave a kick to Tayuya's gut which stung in pain, still not recovered from her fight with Sasuke. Stupid, idiotic, foolish, girl. Frost said after each kick. Sensei, I think she had enough, Saraisu said, sweat dropping. Did I tell you to speak, Saraisu? Frost said as he eyed Saraisu. No sensei, Saraisu said. So, stay out of this. Frost spoke aggressively, continuing his kicking on Tayuya. Ayato's face was crossed with darkness, only revealing his angered gritting teeth and his nose while the eyes were covered in his own shadow by his hair. Saraisu noticed Ayato's angered expression, and the sudden change of the atmosphere around him. It felt dark, really dark and tarrying, realizing Ayato was about to use that if Frost didn't stop kicking Tayuya. Sensei, I think you should stop. Saraisu said, his voice sounding rather worried. I told you, Saraisu, to stay out of this. Frost spoke harshly. But sensei. Saraisu said. Stay out now. Frost spoke harsher. Sensei, please. If you don't stop then. Saraisu said. Then what? Frost spoke. Stop it now, or I'll kill you. Okay. Frost's actions froze as his face, which was once lightened with anger, now with fear, as he slowly turned around to take a good look at Ayato, whose voice sounded demonic. Ayato's body was flowing with what appeared to be black flames all over him as a chakra aura. He looked at Frost with his eyes that became sharp like a dagger with no pupils. If you don't stop it, I'll destroy you. Ayato spoke again. It wasn't Tayuya's fault, so stop. Ayato yelled at the last part, which made Frost cease his kicking on Tayuya. After Frost stopped, Ayato's eyes returned to normal while his chakra also returned back to him. Silence was there for a while, a moment of silence. The killer intent and the fear of death roamed everyone's mind. This was Ayato Usagi K's. Saraisu's friend and the twins as well, along with Tayuya who had known Ayato since their days in the academy. And yet they rarely witness this moment when Ayato loses control over his emotions. Especially after what Konoha had done to him on that day. My, what an impressive show, Ayato. A voice said, sounding amused while clapping slowly. Froz looked at the forest to see a second figure walking out while clapping slowly. That figure was wearing an Anbu outfit which belonged to Konoha with a cat mask on. And this figure sounded like someone very familiar. Kabuto, Froz said, sounding unimpressed. The fear he once held gone now to seriousness looking at Kabuto. What gave me away? Kabuto joked, knowing what gave him away. I'm not an idiot, Kabuto. I know that voice from anyone and that voice belongs to you and you only. What are you doing here? I thought you were meant to stay behind in Konoha aiding the Otokage-sama with his fight. Froz asked. Indeed. Kabuto replied, adjusting his glasses. But it looked like the Otokage was doing fine all by himself going against Kakashi Hatake and Shizune. To be honest, they aren't worth my time after I had beaten both of them a while back. Kabuto said. Who do we have here? Kabuto said, as he approached Naruto's unconscious body and kneeled down to his level. Long time no see, Naruto. I heard about your attempt to flee the Leaf Village, and we were hoping you'd leave because as far as I'm concerned you were a thorn in our plans to take Sasuke. Although we had no idea at the time you were the son of the fourth Hokage, we also had no idea that you would lose control and surpass the strength of even Tsunade and Jiraiya with the Kyuubi's chakra. Kabuto commented. When we found out that it became apparent that Konoha's abuse had gotten so far as you would be willing to leave the village to prevent the Kyuubi from destroying it. Kabuto continued. You have the blood of Minato, Kushina, Madara, Hiroshima, Tsunade, and the second Hokages all in your body, flowing with impressive chakra, I might add. But our interest in Sasuke isn't gone yet, we still are hoping that he will join us. It's no surprise that he attacked Tayuya. I mean, your influence over him gave him a good change of heart which may have caused our goal to make him unachievable. Kabuto finished. Wait, Kabuto-sam, do you know him? Saraisu asked. Yes, I met him along with his team back in the last Chunin exams at the Forest of Death. Kabuto replied. If I had known he would be a burden to our plans of getting Sasuke, then I would have killed him along with Sakura the very moment I met them. Kabuto explained. But I can see that would have taken another opportunity away, the opportunity of researching his blood. He has loyal blood flowing through his veins. Blood belonging to many of the past great clans of Konoha, including the founders. That creates many different opportunities for us to become stronger and unstoppable. Kabuto said. I came here to check on things, but I can see Froz has it handled. I trust you, Ayato, that you will make our plan of Konoha's destruction succeed. Kabuto told. Yes, I will. Ayato responded to Kabuto. Then I shall take my leave. With that said, Kabuto, poof, away in a cloud of smoke. So, Kabuto was only a shadow clone, huh? Froz said with his arms crossed. Saraisu's eyes widened before getting up and to tell Froz what he just felt. Sensei. Saraisu said in urgency. I know, Saraisu. Froz said, knowing what he felt was chakra belonging to the enemy that were on their way towards them. I sense not only Genin but Junin as well, must be elite. I guess our forces didn't have the patience long enough to fight them full force and left. Honestly, why Orochimaru had to make a deal with that organization is beyond me. They only agreed because they had no choice, but upon that agreement, they were allowed to do whatever they want and feel like it. Froz said, I'm allowing you four to watch over Ayato and the Nine Tails. I'll go and stop this Junin elite that's on his way. With that said, Froz disappeared in a flash, leaving the Sound Genins to defend themselves. Well, he's gone, Saraisu said, as he walked towards Ayato. Today you've been on the bad side, perhaps by the important people of Sound, first the Otokage and now Froz sensei. But I guess that was to be expected since we are in Konoha, so I can believe that your emotions of Konoha are getting the better of you. Saraisu said, looking at the silent Ayato. But I do wonder about myself. When Tayuya went against that Yakumana, you were angered when she started to beat her and used one of your jutsus to stop her. May I ask why? Saraisu asked. It's been a while since I felt anything like that. Ayato replied. Ever since Konoha took everything I cared about away from me. I was lost in grief. I didn't have anything after that specific day. I was alone, hurt, scared in the heart, and all because of Konoha. Ayato explained. And when I was with that girl, somehow all of those emotions disappeared, like I found salvation. Ayato said with a hurtful expression on his face. And unfortunately, that salvation lies in the very same village you swore to destroy. Saraisu told. I know that. I know that the village did this to me, I know that. Ayato paused briefly before giving a painful sigh. My parents would still be alive. Ayato said, as he gave a small sniff. What? They turned their heads towards the bushes as they saw Ino walk up to them, stopping meters away. Ino, what are you doing? Shikamaru said as he rushed into stopping her from going any further. Choji did the same while Kiba and Akamaru and Lee all rushed in, with their battle positions. Sakura also rushed with a kunai in her hand. Please, tell me what happened, Ino asked, wanting to know. Why should we tell you, Konoha? Saraisu said, getting up, getting his chakra saber ready, while Hao and Yo were in battle position along with Tayuya. Do you truly know the history the village has? Do you know the amount of pain and suffering others had to endure because of you? Do you know what people like Ayato had to endure? Saraisu said. I want to know what happened to Ayato. Ino said, begging to understand his situation. Just leave it, Ino. Don't you understand that he is our enemy right now? Shikamaru said. Saraisu, Tayuya, Yo and Hao braced themselves as Shikamaru, Sakura, Kiba, Akamaru, Choji, and Lee all prepared themselves for battle. There was a brief silence, before Ayato broke it. It happened, Ayato said quietly, getting everyone's attention. 7 years ago, 3 months ago. Ayato said, I was never born in the village hidden in the sound. It's true I was raised there, but I was really born in the village hidden in the boulders. It was only a while after the Third Great Shinobi War and the village was in bankruptcy. Everyone abandoned the village including its cage. Some remained due to planning but left eventually. Ayato started. It was at the time me and my parents were the only ones who remained and were planning to leave. Ayato continued. I was only 6 when the whole thing happened. Ayato finished. Flashback begins. It was 7 years ago. Ayato was only 6 years of age and it was all in the village hidden in the boulders. It was a once peaceful village that was once filled with joy. Had grass and wondrous tree all set on a flat land that had a few boulders surrounding it. But after time passed with the Third Great Shinobi War, that village was nothing more but a wasteland. The grass now burned into ashes while the tree was no more either. The people long since abandoned the village when the cage left, leaving no one to inherit the position who was qualified enough. Not even the council had the guts to take the mantle of cage themselves and two packed away. With the village dead, many of the citizens and villagers left, leaving for new lives for their families and their friends. The village was completely abandoned. The walls that surrounded the village to protect their people were now filled with holes, gone due to the attacks they had taken. Buildings that stood tall were now leveled, some that still stood now had broken glass and windows and holes all over them. In one particular smaller building that was a 2-level small house, also run down by some of the attacks. There, a 6-year-old small Ayato was holding his hands to his eyes, counting down. 3, 2, 1. Ayato said, smiling as he started to look around for his parents. Ready or not, here I come. He cheered, running around the house trying to find his parents. He first went into their room to find them, but they were not there. What was there was bags that had clothes, food, and some books that they were planning to take with them when they would be prepared to leave the village. Ayato went to a nearby desk checking the drawers to see if they were hiding in the tiny cabinets. He closed them all after opening them to check the desk atop, but to find a map with a circle around a village that had the name on the top, saying Konoha. After failing to find them anywhere near there, he went down to check somewhere else and went downstairs to find them. He looked around and saw another map with the exact same thing as the map upstairs. What he failed to notice was that there was a window wide open, and a shinobi standing there in the bedroom looking at the map with shock. Ayato then went to the bathroom to find them, only not to and found instead the cabinets empty. Obviously the products they once contained were packed away. He stood on a chair to find them in the cabinets, but not to either. Ayato heard the door squeaking, the main door, and immediately rushed, smiling that he had found them while playing the little game. Once he reached the main hallway to the door he thought he had found them, only for his smile to die when instead he saw a group of shinobi, Konoha shinobi, 7 of them standing at the door. He saw 2 bodies that laid before them, recognizing they were his parents. A kid, the leader of the group said. Why would 2 shinobi that plan on attacking Konoha have a kid with them? The confused leader said. "Yes, sir. The shinobi that sneaked in earlier had shown the leader a diary that belonged to Ayato's mother." The shinobi pointed at a page and line that made the leader follow. Once he read them, he dropped the book in shock, his eyes filled with guilt. "They aren't planning on attacking Konoha," the leader said. "They were planning to move to Konoha. They were the people the 4th Hokage-sama had planned to allow in. We just killed a family," he said, in pure shock and guilt. "What?" one shinobi exclaimed. "What have we done?" Another said in panic. This can't be happening." A female shinobi said in disbelief. "Mum, Dad, please get up," Ayato said, trying to smile but tears fell from his eyes. Please. I'll be good if you get up," Ayato said, as he went on his knees and started to shake his parents. It's not funny. Please." Ayato's fake smile dropped and was replaced with a sad look. "Mum, Dad, please, Ayato begged. "Please." Ayato yelled. "Please don't leave me," Ayato yelled. The leader went down on one knee, looking at Ayato with guilty eyes and said, "I'm so sorry, kid. I had no idea they were parents. I had no idea you wanted to find salvation in Konoha. What have you done? What have you done? What have you done? What have you done?" Ayato yelled repeatedly. "Mum, Dad, bring them back now. Bring them. Bring back." Ayato kept yelling. "I'm sorry," the leader said, as he turned his head toward his companions. "Tell him what happened, say." His eyes were shocked when he saw something from the shadows immediately decapitate the heads of his companions in an instant. He looked back at Ayato, and saw Ayato's shadow morphed into something strange, something with tentacle shadows that wiggled in the ground. What's going on?" the leader exclaimed. "You took them away from me. Konoha," Ayato said, as he dropped his hands to the ground, before looking at the shinobi with anger in his eyes. What?" the leader exclaimed. "Now I'll have destroy you all." Ayato's voice sounded demonic, which made the leader scream. From that point onwards the leader screamed in pain and agony for a good minute, before dropping dead. Since then, Ayato has changed a lot. A path that Ayato was given, one he could not drop. Flashback ends. Silence. The entire area was silent. Ino holding her hands to her mouth while gasping in horror after hearing Ayato's story. Shikamaru and Choji were shocked beyond belief. Kiba and Akamaru's jaws dropped. Lee looked to be in disbelief. Sakura's eyes widened in shock as well. "That's what happened." Shikamaru gasped silently. "When we first met, I told you what my name was, correct?" Ayato reminded. "It's true, my name is Ayato Usagi. But it isn't K's," Ayato said, as he stood up on his legs which were shaking from exhaustion. "The Kopi. Those eyes belong to that of a Namikaze member," Saraisu said. "As you heard his story, You also heard that the fourth Hokage was waiting for Ayato's parents. Why would he do that? Saraisu said. That's because Ayato's father was the cousin of Minato Namikaze. Saraisu revealed. What? Konoha's side exclaimed. But that would mean. Shikamaru said. Yes. Ayato said. My name isn't Ayato Usagi Kase. Ayato took a brief pause looking at Konoha with serious eyes. My true name is Ayato Usagi. Ayato took another brief pause. Namikaze. Ayato finished. The nephew you could say of Minato Namikaze, and cousin to Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Ayato explained. But I thought the fourth Hokage was the last Namikaze alive. If there was another, how come no one knew about it? Shikamaru said in disbelief. That's because your fourth Hokage only discovered that his cousin was alive recently at the time. Saraisu said. And you know very well that the Namikazes are famous mostly for having the eyes that can copy many bloodlines and jutsus, so it was no surprise someone like the fourth Hokage would keep it a secret for a while. Then after the death of Ayato's parents, the fourth Hokage must have kept that a secret and allowed Ayato to be alone. Saraisu explained. Perhaps maybe he did that so he could keep the power of the Kopi for Konoha only, and to make sure no one else had the power, which meant leaving Ayato all by himself. Saraisu explained. But that's only a theory we developed. Saraisu said. The fourth Hokage, Naruto's father, would never do anything like that. Abandoning a child is not what the fourth Hokage would do. Choji argued. Tell me something, Akamaiki. Have you ever met the fourth Hokage in person? I thought the fourth Hokage died years ago when the Nine Tails were born. Saraisu said. No. Choji said. Then what makes you think he wouldn't? Saraisu said. As the Hokage, it's his duty to protect his people and the village no matter the cost, right? Saraisu said. The fourth Hokage would never do that. Guy Sensei and my friend's parents say the same thing. He was a caring man. Lee argued. That's what your parents told you, and your parents are shinobi too, correct? Saraisu said. Let me tell you something. I've been in missions higher than genin level, but that's because Froz Sensei wanted us to understand the real shinobi world. Saraisu said. The real world is a harsh environment, unstable, and unpredictable. The stories your parents told you are just a form of propaganda. A lie they wanted you to believe so their image as heroes will live forever. Saraisu said. Are telling us our dads are liars. Choji slightly growled, not liking anyone who was mocking his father. Liars is such a strong word. I would say something like, oh, I don't know, maybe, murderers. Tayuya chuckled, getting involved in the entertainment before her. My father is not a murderer. Choji yelled, stomping his way towards Tayuya in anger. But Shikamaru held an arm across him, stopping him in the process. Forget it, Choji. Don't let them intimidate you. Shikamaru said. Remember what Asuma Sensei taught us. Never fall for your enemy's tricks or they got you. Shikamaru said, making Choji stand down. You can say whatever you like to us and our fathers, it'll just be that good to see your faces when Konoha stops this invasion and drives all of you out of this country. Shikamaru gave a smirk as he looked Saraisu dead in the eyes. We came here for one reason and one reason only, to get our friend back. If you give him back, we won't have to fight you, but if you don't, we'll have no choice. Shikamaru said. I'm sorry, Nara, but he is important in our mission to destroy your village, so unless you want him back, we're just gonna have to fight it out. Saraisu said. But you do remember that Hyuga I fought earlier, right? Saraisu said. The former rookie of the year. The one I cut down in a split second. In terms of strength I hold the third highest in the Genin Corps of Sound. Kajayaki being second strongest, and Ayato being the strongest among us. Even if you are a Chunin, you still lack the power of one and still hold the strength that of a Genin's. Saraisu explained. But I have the intelligence of Nara. I'm sure you heard about my clan, right? Shikamaru asked. For being not only having the ability to stitch your shadows to your opponent, but also the power of the mind. Your intelligence at birth is higher than any average child's, increasing the more you grow up. Some people say it's amazing how no one Nara has become Hokage, seeing their intelligence is enough to fill up the mantle. But with your intelligence your kind becomes lazy. Saraisu replied. Something like that, yeah, Shikamaru said. Which is why I thought someone like you would have been a little more prepared. What a drag. Shikamaru groaned in annoyance. Saraisu grew confused with Nara's speech, but that was when he realized they were in a trap. How come Inuzuka hasn't said a word yet? Saraisu said with wide eyes. Shikamaru smirked, before looking up where he saw Kiba and Akamaru, who transformed into Kiba, fell from the high trees. Fang over fang, Kiba yelled, as he and the transformed Kiba Akamaru both spun like drills straight into the ground. Saraisu jumped back, Yo and Hao grabbed Ayato, and Tayuya did the same as Saraisu had. Boom. The ground below shattered into pieces when the Inuzuka crashed headfirst to the ground. When Naruto's body flung, Sakura jumped in the air and caught him, landing on her feet back on solid ground. Impossible. I can see those two over there standing. There's no way they could be at two places at one unless. Saraisu yelled in disbelief, before both the Kiba and Akamaru that stood next to the Nara suddenly enveloped in a cloud of smoke before clearing to reveal two Shikamarus, before also disappearing to nothingness. Now it makes sense, he must have used his friend's clone jutsu to make replicas of himself and disguise them as those other two. Saraisu exclaimed. It wasn't easy, I had to do what I saw Naruto do. I can see using the shadow clone jutsu is a lot more difficult than it looks, that's why I couldn't get them to talk. It was incomplete. Shikamaru explained. Damn it. Yo, how? I'll watch Ayato keep the others distracted. Use that if you have to. Saraisu yelled. Tayuya, you need to use your curse seal and keep the 9 tails here. Kill the pink hair if you have to. Saraisu yelled. Sure. Tayuya said as she disappeared in a flash. Right. Yo and Hao said before they disappeared in a flash as well. Now, the fight is gonna begin, hope you're prepared, Nara. Saraisu said, as he charged towards Shikamaru with his katana, who stopped it with his kunai. Location. Unknown, specific location, forest. Byakugan. Neji yelled. Sharingan. Sasuke yelled. There, in front of the entire team was Itachi, Sasuke's brother, sitting on the ground cross-legged with a tied-up unconscious Hinata on a tree next to him. He looked at his little brother with eyes of disappointment. Have you come here to kill me, Sasuke? He said, as he then pointed kunai to Hinata's neck. If not, then she would pay the price. Itachi threatened. Neji and Sasuke growled in anger against Itachi's threat, but Sasuke stepped in. It's a grudge between you and me, Itachi. Hinata-chan has nothing to do with the matter at all. Sasuke said. But she makes a great bargaining chip for Sasuke. Itachi explained. If you were to beat me and kill me, then I can guarantee that you and she will be safe. Itachi explained his conditions to Sasuke. You want me to kill you? Sasuke said with shock in both his voice and eyes. What's wrong, Sasuke? Itachi said in his emotionless voice. Are you afraid to battle me because of what happened a few months back when we last fought? Itachi said. Neji looked at Sasuke. He saw the fear inside of Sasuke's eyes and then thought to himself, now that I think about it. When Naruto went with Jiraiya on that mission to bring Tsunade back to the Leaf Village, Sasuke came back injured. The details were kept secret, but to my best guess around the same time as Gai-sensei and the other Junin elite intercepted an enemy, this person must have been the exact same enemy as before. Sasuke is too weak against this opponent. Neji said in a whisper. The only one who heard Neji say that was Sasuke himself, and as much as he hated to admit it to the very core, he had to admit to Neji that he was right. Even at full strength and the training he got and the new power he had received, he knew his strength was enough to go against Itachi at his half-best. But he had to, for Hinata's sake. Alright, Sasuke agreed. Sasuke no. Tenten argued, trying to approach Sasuke, but Neji stuck his arm in front of her to stop her from reaching him. This is his decision, Tenten. Neji said. Neji looked at Sasuke, changing his eyes back to normal with a stern look. I know who this man is, Sasuke. I read his records. He is too powerful even for all of us to take on, but if he's willing to fight you one-on-one, then Hinata-sama's free. Neji said. Am I correct? Neji asked. As I said before, if Sasuke was to win our match, then I'll let her live. If he fails and dies, she dies as well. Itachi replied. But if you intervene now and attempt to battle me, you all die along with them, and refuse, then she dies. Itachi warned, which caused few of the members of the squad to growl at him. We have no choice, we have to leave our faith in Sasuke. Neji said. But Neji, Tenten said, you remember when we visited the hospital to find Guy-sensei, correct? Neji said as he turned his head to the direction where Tenten was at. Kakashi was injured when Guy-sensei was visiting him. Out of the Junin elite, Guy-sensei's strength is tied to Kakashi's. If Kakashi received near-fatal injuries from Itachi, then the chances of us winning are slim if we all fought together. Neji explained. But Sasuke, I can tell there's something to Sasuke more than just the Sharingan. Neji explained. Neji looked at Sasuke and nodded, which made Sasuke nod back to Neji. Sasuke looked at Itachi, before saying, we have a deal, Itachi. For Hinata-chan's safety and status, I will fight you. Good, Itachi said, as he allowed Sasuke to walk closer to him. Itachi placed a hand on his shoulder, and on Hinata's stomach. Before we spar, we need to leave in a more secluded area before we begin our fight. Itachi said. In an instant, Itachi, Sasuke and Hinata, all disappeared in a flash, leaving the others in awe. Neji looked at where the three once stood and thought with hope, Sasuke. I know our clan's backgrounds are different, maybe even hostile, but please, for Hinata-sama's sake, win this fight, even if it might not be easy to win. Location. Far from the squad. Immediately after they teleported, they appeared a couple of miles away from the squad. Itachi looked at Sasuke with serious glare, before making a series of hand signs, creating what appeared to be a clone of himself. That clone held Hinata by the shoulders, while the real Itachi grabbed a kunai from his pocket. Sasuke did the same and looked at Itachi. Naruto. Sasuke thought, with an image of Naruto popping in his head from the day they fought against Gaara. You always said the greatest strength one can gain is the strength to protect their loved ones. Am I correct? Please let me protect Hinata-chan. I couldn't protect my clan that day, nor could I protect any of my teammates. Naruto, when it came down to protecting others, you did a better job than I did, however, Sasuke thought, as he closed his eyes for a bit before opening them again. I cannot always depend on your strength all the time, this time it's a battle just between me and him. With that thought, Sasuke rushed towards Itachi, leaping at him, yelling in determination. Location. Konoha, specific location, Konoha streets. The quiet, empty slums and streets were so peaceful, only the sound of paper being blown against the ground by the wind broke the almost complete silence. That was before some yelling was heard from afar. Ah! Boom! A figure crashed into the ground of the streets, before climbing out of a crater with all of his strength, judging from the outer lines of the figure. Judging by the lines, it was quite obvious that this figure was a male. Soon the dust and smoke finally cleared, revealing that figure to be no one else but Iruka. Iruka in a terrible condition was an understatement, he was like a dead man walking. His hair that was done in a knot on his back was now hanging down, almost covered in blood. His Chunin vest was not gone, and his right sleeve from his wrist to his elbow was now ripped off. Spots of blood appeared all over his Chunin black uniform, his face riddled with pain, and his breath heaving at tire. I heard. He was powerful. But I didn't think he would be this strong. Iruka spoke, trying his best to stand up on his 2 feet. There, From a distance in the sky he could see a shadowy figure representing Genji, holding who appeared to be Anko on his right hand before throwing her down to the ground somewhere near Iruka's location. Iruka gasped before rushing towards the falling Anko, his feet running as fast he could from what's left of his stamina to reach for her. Running as fast as he could, he used what power he had left to jump high in the air and caught Anko in his arms, using his own body to cushion her fall. Boom! They both crashed and landed. Once the dust had settled, Iruka coughed along with Anko who was still in his arms. She was in a worse position too. Anko's net t-shirt was ripped around her stomach area just beneath her breasts, exposing her skin from the stomach. Her hair that was also once hung up in a knot was also ruined, her hair now messy showing that it reached to her shoulders. Blood on the corner of her lips. So strong. Anko coughed. She opened her eyelids just barely to catch a glimpse of her savior, which was Iruka. I told you to. Leave this fight to me. Anko said. Even if I did, I doubt that would have changed the end result. Although if I had maybe it would have. Think about it, if I hadn't helped you, you might be dead by now instead of being alive. Iruka told. It doesn't matter, I only live to serve the village as much as I can. The rest is unnecessary. Anko said. Yeah, well it's unnecessary to let a good person die when you know you could help them. Iruka said. But this guy, he's on a whole different level than we are. Iruka said. Boom. A second crater was created not too far from where Anko and Iruka were at. Inside of that smoking crater came walking Genji who had not even one scratch on him. Despite their efforts and combined strength and knowledge they barely could even touch Genji. I was actually enjoying that. Genji commented. I've fought quite a few strong shinobi for a while now and I must say, I'm kind of disappointed in you a lot. Genji said. I heard so much about Konoha shinobi and their strengths, only for that to be exaggerated to mean so little. Genji said as he turned his eyes towards Anko. Especially you Anko Mitarashi, I had heard so much about you that I thought you would be a challenge to fight, guess I was wrong. Genji said. Anko got up from the ground with a fierce look in her eyes and said, do not underestimate Konoha. We the village hidden in the leaves will protect our people and allies no matter what. And we will triumph. If you say anything against Konoha at all I guarantee you it will be the last mistake you will ever make. Anko said with a determined voice. I don't think you truly understand the position you are in Mitarashi. Genji said. Let me tell you something. Genji began to explain. Since the beginning of the Chunin exams, Sound Shinobi had slowly begun to make their moves to enter Konoha's wall undetected. Thanks to Kabuto, we were able to send a few dozen squads of our shinobi to go undercover within your ranks thanks to the transformation jutsu. Genji explained. Even if they did use a transformation jutsu it would still be impossible for anyone to sneak in Konoha undetected. Many shinobi in Konoha have families, friends and allies here that would have been sure enough that our walls have been breached depending on the attitude of those undercover shinobi. Iruka argued. Take it like this, while they could go undercover sharing the same faces as our shinobi here in Konoha, there's no way for anybody to replicate the attitude or the memories of one person. And on top of that the Inuzukas have canines that constantly roam the perimeter of the walls, they are even checked if they have the same scent of chakra like everybody else. If they did sneak past our barriers there's no way they would do it unnoticed. Iruka finished. That's where you are wrong Chunin. Genji said. While yes it's true everybody shares different chakra signatures and abilities and memories that are next to impossible to replicate. However, thanks to Orochimaru's research we were able to replicate those scents and allow a portion of those memories who were killed into our sound shinobi using the Yakumana's sacred jutsus. Genji explained. But how can anyone get the Yakumana's jut? Anko said in a brief pause before realizing how they did it. Let me guess. You took the aid of traitors didn't you? Anko spat. Of course, we did, how else could have we done it? Though it wasn't easy they had their very own demands they wanted us to fulfill but they found their place within our rankings. Genji said. After that they helped us. You didn't traitor from the great clans of Konoha all perished after their betrayals, did you? Genji said in a chuckle. Those that survived Konoha's little hunt were found half dead because of Konoha, so we took them in and offered them asylum in exchange for some of their services. Genji explained. Since they betrayed Konoha, that meant their respect for the village was gone as well. Genji continued. So, we of the village hidden in the sound took them in and they helped us. Genji explained. The reason you won't see them in this invasion is because the numbers of them are low. We have 3 Yakumanas, 1 Inuzuka and a canine companion, 1 Aburame, 2 Akamaikas and 4 Sarutobis. Genji finished. I had no idea there were a few of them within sound. A shocked Anko said. And to think their loyalty was with Konoha at one stage. Uruka said in disappointment. So, in agreement we decided not to allow them to fight in this battle, but we did promise them we would let them be the new leaders of their clans once we destroyed Konoha. Genji explained. Will destroying the Leaf Village really bring back those of your village to life? Your brother. Anko gave a slight yell which made Genji's eyes open wide at the mention of his brother's name. You said you wanted justice for your brother's death against all of Konoha. And you got it a long time ago. Will destroying the lives of the village really help? Will killing the innocent help either? Will it? Anko said in a slight teary voice. Genji just looked at Uruka and Anko for a bit silently, before doing a series of hand signs, then finishing it and saying, gravitational jutsu. Boom. Immediately, after saying that line, both Uruka and Anko were now on their stomachs on the ground as they could feel the intense weight of the gravity around them squish them. It was difficult if not impossible for either one to move an inch with that power. Ah! Anko yelled as a few drops of blood fell to the ground next to her from the cuts she took from Genji earlier. Anko! Uruka yelled. What happened to my brother all those years ago has no concern over you. My brother only wanted what was best for our village, so he decided to become the cage of our homeland. His ideals had no effect on the neighboring or outside villagers around our home. Genji said with a serious expression on his face. He just wanted to help our village grow stronger so we could defend our people a lot better. Instead, what we got was the destruction of our home village by the hands of our enemies that were allied with Konoha. Genji said. HRGGGGGGGHHHHHHH. Anko groaned in pain as the blood from the cuts on her back started to drip faster. Hey, Uruka called out to Genji. Please. Just let her go. Do whatever you want to me but leave her out of this. Uruka said in a stern voice. And what happens if I don't? Genji said as he glared at Uruka. Konoha isn't exactly on the side of making demands now. Besides, you shall share the exact same fate as her. Which reminds me, Genji said as he walked towards Uruka with his katana lifted high in the air. It might be better to finish you off now than later. That way you won't have to see her die so slowly. Genji said as he was about to slash his katana on Uruka. However, Genji's eyes opened wide with shock, before jumping away from a storm of kunais that landed on the same spot he once stood from. Genji looked up, expecting to see a group of Konoha shinobi but didn't. Instead, what he saw was a group of sand shinobi looking at him with serious expression on their faces. One of the sand shinobi dressed in Sand's Junin attire with black hair and purple eyes looking to be age 27 had landed in front of Uruka and Anko. My name is Subu Minoraru of the village hidden in the sand. The shinobi announced. Author's note. Subu, and, Minoraru, means, grain, and, mineral, in terms of Japanese. Sand. Genji said in surprise. Sand has nothing to do with the battle against Konoha. Genji said. Truth be told, it does. Konoha and its citizens along with the shinobi are allied with us from the village hidden in the sand. Subu said. What Sound is doing is breaking the peace treaty and attacking Konoha. Subu reminded. That's funny. Anko said as blood came from the corner of her mouth. The last time Sand was our ally. You attacked us. Anko said, as Iruka, who was released from Genji's jutsu thanks to Subu, had kneeled next to her, giving her a lift with one leg on the ground while the other was limp. It's true. We did attack Konoha and we did it without remorse. But that was because we believed they were orders from our cage, but it turned out it was Orochimaru disguised as our cage that gave us the false orders. Subu explained as he turned his glare to the direction where Anko was at. But I'll admit, orders or not, it was wrong for us to attack Konoha without warning. Which was why we decided to lay low and wait for the time to strike back at sound in case if something like this were to happen. Subu explained. Wait, you knew about this? Iruka asked in confusion. Not entirely, but yes we did. Subu replied. The Kazekage-sama, Gaara-sama, had suspicions over the Otokage's request to hold the Chunin exams in Konoha. Since the attack, Konoha is now at its closest to its weakest after what happened. Knowing Orochimaru by now from experience, Gaara-sama believed attacking Konoha now would be an opportunity to good for the snake not to miss, especially if the nine-tailed Jinchuriki known as Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze had an emotional issue. The Kyuubi would very well have been enough to destroy Konoha. Subu explained. Wait, you mean to tell me they're after Naruto? Iruka exclaimed in fear and worry. Yes, that would be the case. Subu said. I understand that you two may not trust me completely because of San's involvement from the last invasion, but I do promise that we will do our part to protect Konoha alongside you. Subu said, as he then took a fighting stance with his kunai in his hand. The other San shinobi too took their fighting stances, surrounding both Anko and Iruka in a protective circle against Genji. It doesn't matter either way. Konoha will still lose whether you drive the forces of the Sound Army away or not. Our main goal is to release the nine-tailed fox residing within that boy back in the Chunin exams. Genji said. Even if San drives the Sound Arm away with the help of Konoha, there's no way that you could possibly drive the Kyuubi away once it's released from its host. It's impossible, Genji said with a smirk before his katana clashed with Subu's kunai. Location. Forest. Back with Sasuke, Hinata and Itachi. Sasuke was kneeling on the ground with one leg while the other was still standing on it. There the clone of Itachi had been holding the now awakened Hinata, who had been struggling in his grip to aid Sasuke for a while, but to no avail. Sasuke's face had a little blood on it, his eyes showing the tire he was under, and pain riddled all over his face. While Itachi on the other hand was a completely different story altogether. Itachi was unsaved. Not a single one of Sasuke's attacks could even damage his big brother, much less hurt or touch him. When Hinata woke up, she could see Sasuke was struggling, and it had only been 5 minutes since Sasuke had battled his brother and he was already on the losing end. It was more like a one-sided battle rather than two-sided, Itachi being stronger than Sasuke. I am impressed by Sasuke. Itachi said. You have certainly grown stronger, however. Itachi said as he approached Sasuke's limp body. You have not yet grown to my strength yet, you haven't even unlocked the Magnakyo Sharingan yet. Itachi said, before Sasuke looked up at Itachi with angry eyes before. Kick. Boom. He kicked Sasuke in the face, sending him meters away and crashing into a nearby tree. Sasuke-kun. Hinata yelled in worry. I am still surprised you haven't unlocked it yet, despite my advice to get that power. Itachi said. Itachi dispelled his clone and reached for Hinata, holding her in place. However, since I was your brother, I believe I can give you one more chance of revenge. Itachi said. If I can recall, you have a curse seal given to you by Orochimaru, am I correct? Itachi said as he looked at Sasuke's angered eyes when the dust cleared. I'll take that as a yes then. If you use the power of the seal to create an attack so powerful it would kill me, however, Itachi said as he positioned himself behind Hinata. In order to kill Sasuke, you first have to kill her to get through to me. Itachi finished. What? Sasuke exclaimed. This is a matter between brothers, Itachi. She had nothing to do with it. Sasuke said. The second you allowed her to be involved in your life, Sasuke, was the second she was involved with our affairs. Besides, she's a Hyuga, the Hyuga heir. Both of our clans have a grudge. Since she's supposed to be our enemy, killing her shouldn't be a problem. Itachi proclaimed. However, if you do not kill her, I'll kill both of you. If I kill both of you, I win, but if you kill Sasuke, then you'll live, disgrace the Hyuga, and live all at once. Itachi explained. Sasuke growled at his brother angrily. His body started to envelop markings that represented fire, which was from the curse seal. His chakra steadily rises, and his teeth clench. Sasuke-kun, do it. Hinata said quietly. Sasuke's eyes opened with shock. I know everything. Your entire clan was murdered by your brother. I know the anger and hatred you hold against him. Hinata said, as tears fell from her eyes and she smiled at Sasuke. If it will make you feel better, if it will make you happy, even if it costs my life, please. Please use your Chidori. If you do, then you can kill him, Hinata said, her voice filled with her attempt of happiness for Sasuke. I can't. I can't lose you. I can't, Sasuke said, as his hand started to envelop lightning. Damn it. Damn it, Sasuke yelled, as he rushed towards Itachi, ready to slam his Chidori through Hinata's chest to Itachi's chest. Hinata closed her eyes, feeling for the first time in her life that properly helped anyone and was prepared to die. Only to feel Sasuke's other hand that didn't have the jutsu grab her, pulling her away from Itachi while using his Chidori to slash at Itachi. Itachi dodged, jumping backwards while Sasuke and Hinata fell on their backs. Why? Hinata asked as she looked at Sasuke's slightly angered look. Those who goes against the rules are scum. But those who betray their friends are worse than scum, Sasuke replied, as he looked down at Hinata who was on his chest. I prefer to be scum rather than scum. I don't want to get my revenge if it means severing my bonds. Because, Sasuke said, as he looked at Itachi. Because my friends are the only people who kept me company throughout all this time. Sasuke finished. Itachi silently watched Sasuke, before turning his head where Konoha is and said, I am not interested in the destruction of my former home. Itachi began to walk away. Where are you going? Sasuke asked. Like I said, this invasion doesn't interest me. Itachi replied. The only reason I came here was so I could test you, Sasuke, but I can see you're not strong enough. As your former brother, I will allow you to live once more. However, the next time we meet Sasuke, it will be a match for whoever lives or dies. With that said, Itachi began to walk away. Oh, and one more thing, Sasuke. Orochimaru and the Akatsuki will be a problem for Konoha in the near future, so I would be careful if I were you, especially if it involves Naruto. Itachi said. Wait, what is the Akatsuki? Why are they after Naruto? What is it with Naruto? Sasuke said before Itachi disappeared. Hinata, I'm so sorry. Sasuke apologized to Hinata. I'm sorry I scared you, but it was the only way. Sasuke said before Hinata cut him off by kissing him in the lips. Thank you, Sasuke-kun. Thank you. Hinata said before they kissed again. It was at this moment Sasuke's quest for vengeance had changed. So, what future awaits these two? This was just the beginning, the real secret will unfold in the next episode. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And hit the bell icon so you'll be the first to see what happens next. See you again in the next journey of Uzumaki Empire 2.0.